specific.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate y'all coming out tonight to be with us. And this is our first meeting, I guess, that we're actually going to start having 2 meetings a month, as y'all know. The second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday of the month, we're going to meet at 6 o'clock instead of having one work session and one meeting. So we hope that we can be more responsive to staff and to your needs. And we also hope that we can cut the times of meetings down from 3 and 4 hours to maybe an hour or so. And Shirley's going to hold me up to that over that.
I'll do it.
Okay, so I will officially call this meeting on October the 9th, 2018 in the Mayor and Council of Order. It is 6 o'clock, and we will have our invocation.
Our Father, we come to say thank you. We thank you for another day. We thank you that we are born in the land of the living and in the land of the free. And we hope that whatever we do tonight, that will be pleasing to you and will be for the benefit of the community, not just an individual or the individual area, but the whole community. We pray that you would give us guidance, that we may be led right. This I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. All right, council members, you have the agenda before you. Are there any changes? And if not, I will entertain a motion that we approve the agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I do have. Where do we normally put that?
I'll get my phone out because sometimes they let me know if
So after public comment? Okay.
Jeff's microphone doesn't sound right. Yeah, your microphone sounds real fuzzy to me over here. I don't know if there's anything we can do.
Yes, scratchy. Well, I was going to do the update a little bit later, but I guess I'll do that now. Our new, I'm told by our city clerk that we can, and Jim, can you verify that we'll have it by November? Oh, that'll be great. Is that a little bit better? Maybe I was too close to it.
Keep going. Okay.
Okay, any other additions or subtractions or anything else to the council agenda as written? No, you really to adopt it. I would entertain a motion to approve. Move to approve. Second. Have a motion second to approve the agenda as written, as amended. All in favor? That definitely got loud. Did you vote yes? It is unanimous. Yeah, that's pretty loud now. We hear this down the street. There you go. Okay, now it's off. I'm trying to prove the point that we need a new audio video system. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have reached the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to give public comment, please do so at this time. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, and please excuse my appearance. I've been fighting dogs all day. Doesn't matter. Ownership here in Villa Rica. By the way, I'm Sonia Compier, 224 South County Street, Villa Rica. Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I would like to share a bit of my background. I came to Villa Rica some 27 plus years ago, when the population was roughly 4,175. It's roughly 15,201 at present. Our reason for being in Villa Rica was a small town feel, and it felt right for me to embark on my dream of owning a personal care home. I have a master's degree from Stanford University in nursing. The picture I would like to paint is of a former client of Stewart's Village, Coach Berlin Best. who came to me requesting care for his father, Mr. Verlin Best Sr. We exchanged our beliefs, and he, as well as I, believed and was convinced that his father should be in my care. Besides his father, this was home to Jack and Barbara, the florists, Earl, Charles, and Dana Wynn, Aunt Etta, and others. Dr. Boss made home visits. While I'm compelled to speak on behalf of Coach Best, he visited Stewart's Village more than several days per week and was in serious conversations. I'm sure Coach Best has helped many students, black and white, with charitable contributions such as food and other needed commodities, which fulfilled him as a humanitarian and coach. To the point of him making reference to an incident that happened in the past, I deeply believe he did not intend to be hurtful or disrespectful at all. We as a community need to have serious conversation among leaders and the Billerica community at large, which should address diversity and inclusivity regarding race matters. Lastly, as I close, I've had the honor of caring for John Portman, who built Atlanta, Mary Alexander, who opened the Ritz-Carlton, Senator Johnny Isis' mom, but last but not least, Coach Best's father. In my heart of hearts, Coach Best's character and integrity are on the same level of the others I mentioned here today. Please, Billerica, let us be civil to one another. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wishing to give public comment?
South Street. I started here 2 months ago sitting at the council about shutting down one certain person. We are fastly approaching winter again. Only won't. The city of Billerica to care enough, as much as I have cared enough to bring this to y'all's attention. I don't need no more, I don't want to hear this council meeting say that they'll look into it. I want some action done about it, or the city will experience another 1957. I care about this town, I care about the citizens of this town, and I care about our mayor here. But Mrs. Edwards, Jane Edwards, does not. She wants to harm this town by breaking the rules and regulations and endangering our lives. I just ask that y'all do something about it before she does something to this fair city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Did you see you walking around, Chrissy?
Barely. During the time that all this came up about Coach Verlin Best, I was...
Would you mind just stating your name and address?
I'm sorry, I thought everybody knew me. Chrissy Sullivan, and I'm at 207 North Avenue. I've been here 37 years. I've worked for the newspaper for the last 12. Before that, and still, I worked as a substitute teacher, which is where I met Verlin Best. I have watched him interact with students, parents, and then as a city councilman, citizens. And I can say without a doubt that there are a lot of things you could say about Verlin Best. You could say he's arrogant. You could say he can be a pompous ass, which we all know he can. But to ever imply by word or deed that he would ever be a racist is just outside the realm of possibility. I don't know how the whole thing came about because I was laid up with a knee replacement. But he should never have been allowed to resign. I don't even know how that came about. or retire or whatever over a conversation with one person. Does that mean we're not to have conversations? I have plenty of friends of all colors. We have conversations. We have conversations about race. We have conversations about what we can do about that. If we stop all that conversation, where's that going to leave us? So for a person to be penalized because they have made a statement to another person that was totally not intended to be hurtful or disrespectful based on his reputation and his history, is just out of line. All I can say is I certainly hope that Verlin Best decides to run again in March. And if he does, I can guarantee he will have 100% of my support, my family's support, and most anybody else who knows him. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, seeing now, we'll close the public comments portion of the meeting, and we will move on to the swearing in of Mr. Pritchett. So if you will join me down front, we will make this official.
Mayor, these meetings don't get shorter. That's going to be a real problem. They have to be longer this year.
Before I swear Frank in, I can't say I know the man personally, but I want to tell you a lot about what he's going to be doing on our library board. And just our boards in general are very, very important to our city because they are the link between the city council and elected officials in general and the public out there. So we're excited to have you on board with our library. I know you're as excited about the library as I am. What a beautiful facility we got here in Billa Rica. We should be very proud of that. So if you'd raise your right hand, I'm going to read this, and I'm just going to ask you again to say I do. I, Frank Pritchett, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties of an appointed board member of the Library Advisory Board. I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof. I am not the holder of any office of trust under the government of the United States, any other state, or any foreign state which I am not by the laws of the state of Georgia and prohibited from holding. I am otherwise qualified to hold such office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia. I will perform the duties of my office in the best interest of the city of Billa Rica to the best of my ability without fear, favor, affection, reward, or expectation thereof. Congratulations. Speech, you got a
I don't mind very briefly. 30 seconds. I'm retired from the University of West Georgia. I was the alumni director for many years. Had a lot of alumni events here. And I've lived in Billa since 1999. Your daddy built my house. So I'm welcome, excited about the opportunities to help the city grow and evolve.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to the next item, council updates.
I have two items, council updates. Say things of general concern or general interest. On a sad note, Villa Rica lost one of its beloved four-legged, four-hoofed animals this past week. Chief the horse, who was loved by many adults, many of us, and children, was part of our animal exhibit over there at the Gulf Museum. And I think he was like 38 years old, but when he went down, he just couldn't get back up, as much as his body wanted to. And so anyway, I found out some days late, but I thought I'd pass that along. Also, I'd like to apologize to the people, 140 people who are used to getting an email from me telling me when the agenda is, what the agenda is. I had another attachment with a statement from Coach Best, and for whatever technical reasons I could not get that out, no matter what I did. And the second item I would just mention is, there was an article in the Times-Georgian. If you'll notice this monument, we walk by it all the time out here recognizing local veterans. And I've also driven past the road called, and I've been on it, Ira Smith, and had no idea who Ira Smith was. And I'll leave this down here on the front row, but there was a two-part series on who this young hero was who never made it to World War I. We lost a number of Georgia boys and other U.S. troops when their ship collided with another one on the coast of Scotland. And it's a very interesting story. He was from Villa Rica. He's on that monument. We have a road named after him, and I think it's a good thing if we know our history. So whenever these things are available, I grab them up and I read them. Don't have time to share all of it with you, but I'll leave it here if anybody wants to look at it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the tab A, which is the governing body. Council members, you have before you the meeting minutes from the September 4, 2018 meeting, as well as a special call meeting of September the 13th, 2018. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them. And if so, I would entertain a motion to approve both, or we can make changes to any that you see.
Move the approval if there's no correction.
Got a motion to approve by Councilmember Marshall, and a second by Councilmember Carter. All in favor? They are approved unanimous. Tab B, Parks and I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself. Item number 2 is the Carroll County Service Delivery Strategy Agreement and Joint Resolution adopting the agreement. And before we get into the discussion on that, I want to recognize some very important people in the room right now that are friends of mine, have been good to this city and good for a long, long time. And I won't get y'all to stand up because I don't want to have to hear phone calls. But we have incoming Commissioner Clint Chance. Raise your hand so everybody knows who you are. Gerald Pilgrim, Charles Pope, and Ben Skipper. And we also have Stacy Blackman, who represents, works for Tyson and Advancing Group, right? Is it Tyson Advance? Okay. So, just again, I just want to thank you all for the, what you've meant to me as a friend over the years. You've been a good partner with the city, and I appreciate everything that you do with Carroll County to help Villa Rica. So with that, Tom, you want to start off?
We have, for the second time, an agenda item to discuss the upcoming SDS agreement with Carroll County. We have both a copy of the agreement, clean and redlined, along with a joint resolution that needs to be approved by the city. The county's deadline, as I understand it, is October 31 to have this done. If you remember from the previous conversation, the way that the approval process works is that the county and, in our case, Carrollton, both have to approve the agreement along with 3 of the 5 cities that have at least 500 population. There's a couple of cities that will not vote because of that, due to population. And last of all, the information that is at the guts of this are summarized in 2 sections on the cover sheet. One is the way that the service provider designations are to be spelled out, and in a second section there's some information there about MAPS funding and the IGAs that are in place. So I would like for you to take this opportunity to talk about the agreement, to give us some directions about how you want to proceed. Anticipate that this will come back to the next agenda, which will be October 23rd, for your consideration to approve or not approve the joint resolution.
Council questions or comments?
Well, I've had an opportunity to read through
the 19-page, what I'm learning now is a summary of what the actual SDS agreement will look like. So, David, let me ask you a question. It's my understanding that this is not the final agreement, that in fact the final agreement will be more than 100 pages.
This is a representation of the agreement that has been in place in Carroll County for probably 20 years now. It will get reduced to a format. My understanding is it will get reduced to a format that the Department of Community Affairs wants you to put it in. It is representative of the agreement that all the cities and the county are entering into, but it does have to be translated onto the form that the DCA likes to have it on. Yes.
Is it possible for us to have that final format prior to making a determination about whether or not we would approve it as a body?
Gerald, would you come up and probably...
Ms. Black, just to address
Because I had a question on what it meant to reduce it to a
Gerald
format.
Holden, all of this is that you're more than welcome. This is Carroll County's, this is our working document that we have. This is what our clerk's office has right now that they're working out. The forms don't really say anything. They're just going to be checking boxes. If you look at, we also have a copy, kind of an example, just kind of a comparison for you. This is y'all's agreement with Douglas counties. This is the agreement with Carroll County. We have more municipalities. So you have multiple intergovernmental agreements, like with our fire services agreement. You have that. We have one with each city that'll be included in there. We also have taxation. The taxation agreements that we have for that is included. In Douglas counties, those intergovernmental agreements aren't even included. So this is going to be probably about 3 weeks worth of work for our clerk's office to type up, to fill out, then present to the mayor for the clerk's signature, for the clerk to endorse. So, well, I don't think we're going to have the final one for you because there's a lot of checks and a lot of boxes. We don't know who's included, who's not going to be included. But I think right here, this is representation of the entire agreement. You're more than welcome to the intergovernmental agreements that we have with the city are in place. There is nothing new on those documents. It's just that we check the box. Do we have an intergovernmental agreement? Yes. Then we attach all the agreements. So there's really not anything in there. Just, the resolution is the guts of it. The intergovernmental agreements, I think, have been previously approved by all the governing bodies. Is that?
That's right. So it's basically, the summary is the narrative form, what will be attached to these DCA forms.
Well, just so I don't look at a lot of these agreements, but I do real estate transactions. I've done some with you, Stacy. And the summary of a real estate transaction is that we get a stack of pages this big, but the summary is if you don't pay, you can't stay. But the details of what's in all those documents do matter. And it's hard for me to conceive how a 19-page document, which that includes the contents, the table of contents, and the cover page, is going to become some 200 pages, and the fundamental meaning of these paragraphs will mean the same as I interpreted it the day I read it in a 19-page format when it becomes a 200-page format.
And again, we're more than welcome. These are things that are there. You're more than welcome to look at any one section. We can just pull a random section from in here.
Is that the final document?
This is Douglas County's final document.
You held up another.
So you just Douglas County, and on the course, this is our working document to try to create the final of all.
When do you think you'll have that ready? Well, I just heard the city manager say,
if it's not going to be approved by a majority of the cities, we're not. Then we'll go into negotiations of that. That's what we're still waiting on for the cities to approve it, so we'll know.
well, I think what Councilmember McDougal was saying on Gerald is, when do you anticipate having that?
The final document until after all the cities approve it. We would not have this and typed up and all that for us to approve.
Well, let me restate what I'm saying then. absent the resolutions from the cities, all the meat of what's in that, when will you have it ready?
The DCA cover forms, I mean, you're talking about probably with typing and all those, several weeks to have that in copies of all the cities within, I mean, it's a lot of manually typing.
And is that just forms you're submitting to DCA that aren't related to how Villa Rica and Carroll County carry out this agreement? I'm trying to understand.
I just passed these forms. This is your agreement with Douglas counties, and it has the form of economic development and how it's checked out. I just want to show you like just a random thing on there, how it is, and then where Carroll County's on the economic development.
In order to help explain what the translation is from what you have in front of you, which is a summary, to the final agreement. If you look at any one of those paragraphs, economic development, if you look on the summary there that you have, on the summary it's one paragraph that tells you what the agreement between the city and the counties is. That one paragraph gets translated into these forms, which Gerald's handed out, and each little block of each paragraph turns into about 3 or 4 pages on the DCA forms. And most of the language on the forms is, check off a block, and a block will get checked off based on what's in the summary. There's about 6 choices for each. I'll just pass this around. You maybe better understand what he's saying by looking at it.
This is the blocks that'll be checked. Then attached to that will be a page that'll be the description of how economic development is done between the cities and counties. If you will look at Douglas counties, they do not provide narrative descriptions on their documents.
I'm not comparing us to Douglas County in this agreement. If I were, I'd be liking yours a lot better. I've looked at both.
The narrative descriptions are all there, so we're trying to get all the cities in there. I mean, there's not any, these forms are not, I guess they're just not providing information. I mean, can you have it before the 23rd? You're more than welcome to have that. We can have the forms filled out, checked in, that'll have all these boxes that were checked in. I don't think they would provide you with any useful information.
Let me ask you this. I'm sort of led to believe that this summary is substantially the same as an agreement that's already in place. Do you have the most recent completed forms that you submitted to DCA?
Yes.
Maybe we could look at that.
You're welcome to, and if you look at, if you have a computer, that is what some of this is, where we're going to be transposing it in. And if you go to it, if you Google Carroll County Search Delivery, the first document that comes up is that.
That doesn't resolve the content issue, but it may help to help us understand what the point you're trying to make is, that the summary is the same. It's just that the format is substantially different and more cumbersome. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the format. And we will have that. I think that our narrative is going to turns out being the same. You're welcome to look at our 1998 agreement. It's actually it's actually about this thing.
Okay.
So it'll be there. We'll be glad to show you what that narrative is, what it was. There's no, these forms are, like I said, these are just state forms that they make you go through it. The actually 1999 version of it has it. Mayor would have had to sign it 29 separate times. The clerk would have had to sign it 29 times. At least they did reduce that. We're going to have to sign it once.
Let me ask you this. When does this come up for review again?
The next time, it's always subject to come up at any time if the cities and the counties.
When is it slated to?
It would be the next loss negotiation, which would be 2022.
So 4 years from now.
That's 4 years. So you're asking us to pass this thing so it's what you're saying?
It's been passed, it's been there, the cities are looking at it, y'all are the first ones that have questioned the forms. I mean, I understand it, it's one of these things that these forms were available for the city to look at. Y'all have already filled out the forms before.
we're not questioning the forms. What's hard to comprehend and why I'm willing to look at the other format is that you're going to take 19 pages of information, which really includes the contents and a cover page, which is probably 3 or 4 pages. So 15 pages is going to become 200 pages, and the meaning that I take from a particular paragraph out of the summary is going to mean the exact same thing when it gets finished becoming 200.
If there's an intergovernmental agreement included in that, intergovernmental agreements describe how we work together.
For my part, I'll just speak for me. I would like to see, I will go and take a look at the previous agreement and so that I can understand what you're saying, but I would also be inclined to view the entire document before it gets voted on. I understand what you're saying, you're almost saying that's impossible because you don't plan to fill these documents out until you know for a fact that you've gotten the required number of cities to agree to it.
That would be very helpful for us to understand that, because this is a lot of manual labor that would have to go into typing that. That is basically, we have agreements that are already how we're operating, how we operate with fire service. It's simplified into this form, but we have an agreement with Villa Rica on how we operate fire service. We're 20 years into that agreement. We've got 30 years left to go on that.
Gerald, maybe I can bring a little clarity. I don't want you to feel like that you said we were the only city that had questioned it.
No, I mean, I'm not saying...
This is not about relationships. It's not at all. I started out by recognizing y'all and saying that we have a great relationship with Carroll County, so that's not what this is about. Having attended obviously every one of these meetings, I will tell you what it's about as far as most of the people that have spoken to me, these council members, is that rather than just sign something and not really know what they're signing, and then it come back a year later and say, well, you signed it and agreed it, not saying that you would do that, and you haven't done that, and Carroll County hasn't done that, but this council in the past has been burned by doing things like that and not really looking at it and being given all the information when they made a vote. And I think that's what you're hearing. It's nothing about you. It's nothing about the county. It's nothing about the relationship. It's more about if we're going to vote to do something and we're going to represent the taxpayers, and then I think the council lets them know what they're voting on.
And I appreciate where the council's standing. My thing is that we provided the information to the city. I know the city met in the spring about had some meetings with some of the cities about this document, preparing for it. Again, we could have had that if we would have known there's some issues about it. We did not know that the council did not know that these were converted to forms. In no way are we trying to hide anything. Because, we have intergovernmental agreements, and I promise you that, Mr. Duda, we don't know each other. We're straight up on that this is one of those things we do believe when you compare these documents. It may not be the exact thing of how it's going to be presented, because there may be some city may say, oh, wait a minute, we do this one little change of funding when we type up what's there, we check the box, that's wrong. But we'll present it to you and show y'all. But one of the things I think you will see, if you would compare the narrative that has been created by Ms. Blackman, that has been forwarded to all the attorneys, for all the cities, all the city managers, all the city administrators, they have not come up with that. They did not want to see the forms. Most administrators and managers are aware that they get converted to forms. They actually, Bill Osborne, that was a city manager of Douglasville, complimented how the ease of this and how much easier it was for him to understand. And he was involved in the Douglas County, Douglasville lawsuits, and was very complimentary of it. So again, we're just trying to figure out, if you want the different information, we will compile it. That's not the problem. It's just going to take a little bit of time. August, we would have been able to get that if that's the kind of stuff for it. Again, I don't think you're going to see that it's going to be information that's going to be completely enlightening to you on these forms. But again, these intergovernmental agreements for all the other cities and all the other how we operate, you're more than welcome to them. They're not anything that's hidden. These are all public documents, and we want to see it. It's on the websites. It's on everything else. Again, we just weren't prepared that we haven't typed all this up to be presented this format.
Well, here, let me see if this would make Councilman McDougal feel better. Again, this is not about relationships. I want to stress that over and over and over. This is not about What this is about is the council wants to have the information before they vote on it. So it would be helpful to either have that information that you, even if it's not typed and filled out and, they want to know what they're voting on. And so Stacy, however we can get that information to the council, that would be helpful. I think what the council's saying. They're not saying, we're not stalling this because we're not going to sign the intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County. That's not what they're saying. They're saying we want to know what we're voting on.
We can fill out those forms, at least.
It's just going to be, they may not be there, it's going to have to be manual. It may be next week before we can do something.
That's fine.
Just gives y'all a lot of time. And for the 23rd, that gives y'all very little time to look at it, because it is a massive amount of information.
I appreciate that you said we don't know each other, because we don't. This is the first time I met you. There's nothing personal about it. I'm the newest member on this council, and every document that comes before us, no matter how big it is, I read every page of it. This is nothing new. I will not talk to my constituents and say that I voted on a 15-page document. It's now 200 pages. I never read those pages.
Sure. And appreciate it. And like I said, there's not, again, I think that you're a great steward of the money. Y'all doing a great job up here financially, and has really done some great stuff. There's some positive stuff in Villa Rica. So we appreciate the partnership. Again, I think there's some confusion on our side, that we'll accept that there's just, we've got everybody new. We will get that to it. It's just like I said, it may be a little bit there.
I appreciate that, and there's no question that we have.
What you do is what I do, and unfortunately, I've read every page too, so.
Well, there's no question that we have a great relationship with the county. This is not reflective of that in any way, but it is important to me that I be able to understand what I vote on, whether I raise my hand to affirm or oppose.
Again, we have nothing, and we're proud of that, and like I said, we're proud of the relationship with Villa Rica, and we're proud that I think once you complete it, I think when you talk on the 23rd, I think you're going to say that this is far more complete than what you would expect it to be.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Stacy.
You need that page back.
You want it back?
It's from Douglas County. We're good.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, so we will move this to the October 23rd agenda, correct? All right, tab B, Parks and Recreation, Vicki?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good evening. The item that is before you is, this is a proposal to update the bylaws for the Villa Rica Public Library Advisory Board. The advisory board over the last year has had, can you guys hear me?
I can, but you're right there. I don't know if the audience can. No, they cannot.
1 month.
Say that new system's gonna be in?
November 1st.
Okay, I'll just get a little bit closer. The advisory board over the last year has had quite a bit of conversation and wanted to make a little bit more clarity as it relates to what the requirements are to remove any of the appointees, or make a recommendation to the city council to remove appointees, specifically as it relates to absenteeism. The biggest question that arises is that they just didn't think the language was clear enough in the bylaws. And so what is proposed is some amendments to the bylaws that basically seek to just tighten up that language, specifically related to absenteeism, spelling out more clearly which months the meetings are scheduled, and then more specifically, how many of those meetings you have to make within a year in order for them to feel comfortable making a recommendation to the city council regarding removal. There has been some challenges with some of the appointees not really showing up to meetings, maybe making one meeting a month, and again, for the other board members, they just didn't think it was clear enough, or that those board members may have understood what their requirements were to attend the meetings. And so what you have here, again, it spells out which months are required. Just so everyone is clear, their meetings are February, April, June, August, October, and December. And basically, board members are required to attend. It's 4. Let me go back. Don't miss 3.
4 or 6.
4 of the 6 meetings per year. I don't know if you have any questions regarding that.
Council, have y'all had a chance to look at the bylaws that are attached to you?
I've seen the bylaws everywhere.
I have the Constitution listed first, and then the bylaws are later in the document.
Actually, the only thing I had to ask was actually for a favor, and only because sometimes we're reading up to hundreds of pages sometime a month. It would be really helpful if the changes were highlighted, the actual changes. But other than that, I read through it, and I found them, and it tells what you changed, but I had to go looking for where they were to find them, and it'd just be a little bit more convenient and easier to find the changes. Otherwise, I'm good.
And we typically would have had that. My apologies for that. I know staff pulled those and it was a little late for...
Okay.
So did the library board vote on this?
They did.
They're in agreement with these changes?
They did a special call meeting in September to go over the changes and approve to make the
I reviewed it. I don't have any objections. It says that a board member may be subject to dismissal for failure to attend 4 regularly scheduled meetings within a calendar year. What would be the process for that? Would that board then propose that that member be replaced, and then how would they accomplish that?
Essentially, you, as the city council, appoint the members to the board, and so it would be us having that discussion in the library board meeting, them taking a vote, and then us bringing that recommendation before.
So David, would we then vote to affirm that removal, and then, I guess at that meeting or some subsequent meeting, you would propose a new member, or we'd have applications? Is that how that is?
Yeah, that's how it's going to work. You've got the power to remove somebody. This just helps to give a reason why you're doing it.
I'm in agreement with this.
If there aren't any other questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please proceed.
To approve the update to the Villa Rica Library Advisory Board bylaws and Constitution.
So, have a motion made by Councilmember McPherson, seconded by Councilmember Carter. Any other discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous. Vicky, great job on this, and I would just ask that you do the same with the recreation. I know those probably need to be updated, so.
Could I just ask a question on that? How are we with that board? Is it half?
The library advisory?
No, the recreation board.
We have 3 members right now that are appointed. We have not received any other applications at this point, but we are still recruiting.
But that is a 7-member board, right?
Correct, and we never even, when we initially started, we didn't have 7 to begin with. We had 5. We had 5 that submitted.
Okay, I'm just hopeful we can get a full board. I just wanted to ask.
Tab C, Public Works. Pete. Ansel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
This evening I have a request for the purchase of a budgeted 2019 F-250 crew cab truck for the Public Works Department. This vehicle will replace the current 2006 F-150 I'm assigned, which will be turned into a dedicated lift station maintenance truck for the wastewater treatment plant. It's equipped real well to handle those pumps, and that's what it'll be doing. As some of my job duties will change going into the new budget year, I'll be moving both manpower and equipment daily to various job sites, and this type of truck will be needed to meet those demands. It will also better serve the need in storm recovery efforts and snow events, which I will continue to supervise going forward. The truck was bid with identical equipment at state contract dealers and the local Ford dealer, and Don Rich Ford was a low bidder on this vehicle. And I would like to make a motion to award the purchase to to the low bidder, Don Rich Ford, in the amount of $30,496.
So you're gonna make the motion tonight? Is that how we're gonna do that?
And making sure he gets,
That's one way to get it.
I'm just waiting on a second.
Yeah,
I second it,
that's a good motion. I'll second. Well,
oh, so
So it's the attorney.
let me make the motion for you, Charlie. Make the motion to purchase the budgeted F-250 XL 4 crew cab truck from low bidder Don Rich for the price of $32,496.
second.
Motion seconded by Councilmember Marshman. Discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, Charlie. You gonna make a motion too?
See, if you have to, you have to.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item I have before you is mandated by EPA.
Can I ask one, Jim, is there a way for you to turn that mic up?
Or maybe use David's.
It does all of them? I didn't know. But I know the audience can't hear because I'm looking at you and it's... No.
That mic ain't working. Yeah, use the city attorney's mic. Try that one. How's that? That's better. Okay. As required by the Safe Drinking Water Act, EPA has mandated unregulated contaminant monitoring rule number 4. Every 5 years, they pick a unregulated contaminant list of about 30 contaminants that we have to monitor for. And the monitoring cycle is going to start 2019 for us. So I'm seeking your approval to choose a lab, and these labs have to be certified by EPA in order to conduct these particular type of tests. So I'm requesting your approval to engage American Water Central Laboratory to assist the city in performing the required testing for these unregulated contaminants in an amount not to exceed $10,040. This budget, pardon me, this is in the budget. Yes.
And it's mandated.
Discussion? Nope. I'll make a motion to engage American Water Central Laboratory for laboratory services to perform the mandated 2019 UC-1R water testing in an amount not to exceed $10,040.
Second.
Motion seconded by Councilmember McPherson. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Tab D, Information Technology. Amanda's bringing our new audio visual system to us next month.
See, the worse it does, the more you'll appreciate it.
That's true.
Good evening, Mayor. Based on that logic, we have a great appreciation already. Bring before you a security system for our maintenance buildings. Just to implement a security system for the maintenance sheds at D-Plex and Gold Dust. Currently, we have really no security system in place at those locations, and according to Charlie, we've been broken quite a few times, right, Charlie? And the plan is to set a silent alarm so that we have a good response time to get to them and hopefully catch the people doing this, and then word on the street will knock it down. This is to enter into an agreement with Relico, and Relico's who we're planning on going forward with to do security cameras and stuff like that with in the future. The response time, I've worked with them for years, and the response time has been amazing, and that's something we haven't had
with our current provider in quite some time, and there's a lot of people in this room that will attest to that.
So I only see one bid. You did not bid this out, I think.
I did not, and the main reason is to go with a provider that is still semi-local, that I know will give us good response time, and is somebody I trust. And just as a background, it's in here, but just for the audience, we have had a tremendous amount of theft in the parks for a long time, but I think it's probably ramped up in the last year. So not only are they stealing the equipment, but they're coming back a second time on the weekend and getting the trailer to carry equipment with. So, this hopefully will stop that from happening. Correct. And then Ms. Carter, you brought to me the one, and he brought us Georgia Power is actually going to help us implement some of the traffic cameras. We've sat down, the chief and I, and Count Parker have sat down with him, and they're going to help us do the traffic cameras. They're better suited on that arena.
Traffic cameras for?
We still haven't decided on the locations due to, I believe, budget, correct, Chief?
Yeah, but I think the way it was presented was that it's going to be to write tickets on. That's not, these cameras will be more to, you try to catch people that are broken the buildings, that kind of stuff, leaving and things like that. It's not where we're going to be writing tickets on the cameras.
Okay, to monitor locations.
Working some of it into with the truck traffic.
Okay.
And enforcement and stuff like that.
But the other is more like protection from theft, not traffic.
Surveillance, yes ma'am.
Okay, you say it's $29.95 a month, location, how many locations?
For the maintenance sheds, it's going to be 2 locations, and that's a cell service. It's a cell service. That way there's no lines that can be cut. Right, but the question
figured out how to cut lines. I don't know why anybody wants something that's connected to phone lines or anything else.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
He said it's going to be 2 locations.
2 locations.
But
And that they would be operated by cell phone signals. That's the reason for the cost, right? You also mentioned that Relico would be the company that we would transition to because we don't have a reliable service right now. That is correct. What is the plan for that? Is that a plan that's in phases? Our first plan is to phase in PD and then City Hall and then the other locations, where it's going to be a centralized server so that PD can pull up cameras at all of our locations instead of having to go to each location and pull up the DVR and manage individual DVRs. It's going to all be centralized. Well, I think that may answer a little bit of the question that Councilman Carter has, which is that you didn't get more than 1 bid. So what you're saying to us is that this is a local company, you have experience with this company, and they're trustworthy to other companies, and this is the one that you would like us to move forward with in addition to these maintenance locations, but for the city, and that'll be part of the transition. Are you okay with that?
Aren't these guys in Noonan?
Yes, sir.
Is that local enough? Local?
Well, I have experience with Relico as well.
They're good.
And they are a good company. Very good.
So that includes remote access. That's basically being able to control it from that central location. Is that what that means?
Yes, ma'am. And you can arm the alarms and disarm the alarms with cell as well.
Okay.
I think they handle Chamber of Commerce here in Carrollton. Any other questions or comments? I would entertain a motion to approve or...
I make a motion to utilize Relico for a security system at these locations not to exceed $800 for install and $29.95 a month per location.
Did you get that, Lisa? Okay. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Jim.
We're silent too.
Tab E, Finance, Sarah?
Will you pull up the PowerPoint? So this month we'll have 2 financial updates at each meeting. We'll do August this time and we'll do September next meeting, then we'll be caught up. So it'll just be the second meeting of every month I'll do the financial update.
Alright, so this is our August 2018 update. First up, we have cash. So total cash in the bank last year was $5.5 million, and this year, at the end of August, we had $7.3 million. The top three there are our major operating funds, the general fund, water, sewer fund, and sanitation solid waste funds. They are part of a pooled cash account in the bank, which means instead of having separate bank accounts, we have one bank account that we write checks from. However, the system tracks what money is due to which fund. So our general fund last year had $4.8 million, now we have $4.3 million. And water sewer fund, we've seen a significant change here. We had a negative $200,000 last year, now it's a 1.5. And then sanitation solid waste, also a negative $348,000, still negative. The big decrease in that negative number is because at the end of our 2017 fiscal year, our auditors had us write off a loss that they determined would not be collectible. So that $50,000 is the loss that we have incurred so far in the first 8 months of 2018. The last three there are separate bank accounts. They are not in our pooled cash accounts, but those are our SPLOST funds. So we still have money in our 08 fund. We have $376,000. In our 2015 Carroll County SPLOST, we have $443,000. In our new Douglas County SPLOST, we have $155,000. Okay. Next, I want to show some of the growth in the city. So we look at new construction building permits for both residential and commercial, and we also look at water taps and sewer taps. Typically the numbers are pretty similar. So we've already done 90 more building permits residentially in 2018 compared to 2017, and the taps coincide with that as well. Haven't done the permits yet for any new commercial building in 2018 compared to 6 last year at this point. Okay. All right, this is our income statement for water and sewer. This is year-to-date, so this is January through August, comparing 2017 to 2018. If you look at that total revenue line, you see a significant increase there. Again, in 2018, we had major rate increases, which improved our cash in the previous slide, but also we see the increase in revenue. So this includes the water increase of 7% on our rates and the sewer increase of 35% there. And then you do see a higher expense on the 2018 side than the 2017 side. I will point out the debt expense there is significantly higher. However, we are comparing a 12-month year to a 9-month year, so that's why that looks a little bit skewed there. Depreciation, slightly higher. Water expenses are down. We've talked about that over the past few months. But overall, our net loss has decreased almost $400,000 compared to this time last year.
Sarah, is it safe to say that this year we're in a better position to be able to make that balloon payment on our debt in 2020 than we were this time last year?
We're definitely in a better place, but you can see we still have some room to go. So, okay. Next is our income/loss statement for our sanitation solid waste fund. Again, if you look at that total revenue line, you see quite a bit of a jump there. We did raise the rates there this year, made sanitation mandatory, so we did see a significant increase in our revenue. Expense is up as well, but as I've mentioned over the last few months, we did realign the personnel properly. We had some people in the general fund who actually do the work of the solid waste pickup, so we put them in the correct budget for 2018, so that's part of the difference. Also our tipping fees, which is when we dump the waste at the landfills, those increased significantly as well.
Did you say the allowance was on track?
So in 2018, we did budget this was the last year we were going to budget a supplement from the general fund. So that is money from general fund helping that fund. So I guess the loss would be about the same if we weren't doing that. Okay. Next, just wanted to point out a few things. You can see how much our sales tax revenue has grown from last year to this year. Hotel motel tax revenue has also not quite doubled. We did bring in consultants to help audit the different hotels. So our hotels in town have been communicating and paying this consultant it's a consultant recommended by GMA. And so they've kept everybody on target. They estimate by the end of 2018, again, this is through August, they estimate by the end of 2018 we'll have close to $300,000 in hotel revenue.
People going to go 153, actually currently have 153 people employees.
Yes, total employees. So I'm counting actual people, not FTEs, so that does include part-time people, but not seasonal employees. And water purchases, I always want to point out how much that has decreased. So we've done a lot of good work out at the water plant to we're relying less on the water authority there. So good news. And last, I always like to end on a positive note. This is our self-funded insurance. We've been on the plan. This is showing 11 months. At this time last year, we had spent $1.2 million to United Healthcare. They put that money in their bank, whether we spend that money or not. Now, every payroll, we put the money in the bank. That is the city's portion and also the employee portion. So that's moved into a bank account, kept separate, and anytime we have to pay administrative fees once a month to our different carriers. It's for the additional reinsurance that we have. And then also the actual claims to the doctors and the pharmacies come out of that bank account. So in total, we've spent almost $900,000 on that. So you see a cash outlay difference of $338,000 in the first 11 months of the plan.
That's money that stays with us, it's not it's profit to our insurance carrier.
Correct, that's money in our bank.
Questions? Thank you, Sarah. Great job.
Okay.
Item 2.
All right, this is our first 2019 budget amendment. Yes, we started the fiscal year 9 days ago. We have received notice from Carroll County that we will be receiving $57,000 towards police vehicles and related equipment. So this was not part of our original budget for this fiscal year, so we wanted to go ahead and budget that. So this is increasing the expense for the vehicles for the police department and also offsetting that with an increase to revenue, $57,000, so that's no impact to the bottom line there, just raising expense and revenue in the same amount.
Is there someone to thank for that?
Carroll County, Vicki Anderson.
Yep, Carol, Vicki Anderson, our outgoing commission member, who I hope comes to a meeting here in the next month or so. I'm going to call her myself. She made sure that happened, so we thank her for that. Questions?
And we've had a meeting that didn't conflict with their meetings, so it's kind of nice.
Item number 3.
So do we need to pass
Yeah,
this
don't think
ordinance?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me make a motion on this ordinance here. I make a motion to approve an ordinance to approve an amendment to the budget for the fiscal year 2019 for the city pursuant to section, there's no section in there, of the city charter. What is the section? Well, this is a section.
David, do you know?
If we have an incomplete ordinance, then
Approving, the ordinance for the
I don't think that there has to be a section listed there at all. You're just amending the budget.
okay, pursuant to the city charter, how's that?
That's great.
So motion, do I hear a second?
second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Now,
Thank you.
item number 3.
Okay. Council did vote to approve the 2019 fiscal year budget last month. Just wanted to bring back for approval specifically on these new positions. This is a page out of the budget book, but wanted to have the council's approval on the new positions for the 2019 fiscal year. So it's split by fund here, and I'll just list them off real fast. In the general fund, we have the assistant to the city manager, meter technician, part-time HR clerk, assistant clerk of court, lieutenant for patrol, 2 police officers, a school resource officer, maintenance technician, a part-time planning and zoning specialist, and that would be as part of the reorg to replace the planning and zoning specialist, and then the last one is the part-time licensing and permitting clerk. And then in the water sewer fund, we have a superintendent and a lead operator for the water plant. Grand total of all of those positions, $486,000. So we're asking the council to approve those so we can move forward and start hiring those.
You got the delays in there.
Yes, most are delayed.
Just wanted to point that out.
4 that are not 3 to 6 months. Yes.
Discussion?
I'll make a motion to, that we approve the new positions for the 2019 fiscal year.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous?
Could I pause just for a second and ask the chief, the school resource officer, is that being advertised for already? Are we close to filling that? Were you waiting on us to make this vote?
We're talking about from Maryland County Motion, by the way.
I can, but you can come up if... Okay.
Do well on.
You can speak in his mic.
If it ends up carrying on longer, it's a pain.
I was over at the school a couple of weeks ago, and they pointed out that they'd already identified a location for him to have an or her to have an office, and I'd like to see that filled as soon as possible. So I have a question about the update. Do you have an update on it?
Okay, we have filled the position. What about the other 2 positions? Have been filled?
Which ones?
You have assistant clerk of court and lieutenant patrol. Those filled.
No, we are waiting for this approval tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll move forward as soon as possible on those. Next, let's call you Elise. Elisa, will you pull up the promotions, the other item? Next are the promotions for the 2019 fiscal year. Again, you've seen these with the budget. We're just asking for council's approval on these. I'll read them off again. In the general fund, we have a promotion for the school resource corporal to become a sergeant. We have a promotion for the senior library assistant to become the assistant library manager. In the water sewer fund, we have 2 equipment operators wanting to promote those to crew leaders. And the last item is a backflow coordinator to become an administrative assistant / backflow coordinator. Total cost with all of those is $23,686.
Tom, do you want to make any explanations on why we did some of these? Like, for instance, library, isn't it because there has to be somebody there in authority that's managing things that has supervisory authority when the manager's off campus, that sort of thing?
Well, we're encouraging the current manager to do outreach, so that would create that opportunity for someone else to fill in while she's off-site. We have discussed this with council before, so this is a repeat of a previous request. So something that we've been in favor of just about the entire time I've been here. The corporal to sergeant position was due to span of control as we added another SRO. The crew leader positions are improvements in the way that we function that we talked about probably for 6 or 9 months. We currently have the ability now to actually get Jimmy off-site some. If you're familiar with that operation, he's pretty much here all the time, and he's either supervising work in the ditch, or we're doing it without someone who's really certified and authorized to do it. So we've been working with 2 people trying to get them to the point where they could be running water and sewer repairs and doing it certified.
without his direction, so that would move us there. And then we have this other position is partly a cleanup, but partly a reflection that what we were titling the job and the way it was compensated and graded weren't proper, so we're trying to fix that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the promotions for the 2019 fiscal year retroactive to October 1st, 2019.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 4.
Last is the reorganization for the 2019 fiscal year. So we had a couple changes in our org chart, the way the budget is reflected. First is to create a utility director and create a department there. That director would be in charge of the water plant and the 2 wastewater plants, as well as distribution and collection. And separate the public works director, separate the duties of the current public works director. So this allows the utility director to focus on the utilities and allow the public works director to focus on street, sanitation, solid waste, stormwater, and codes. And then there would be a deputy public works director, as Charlie was talking about earlier, that would be in charge of maintenance. So that's fleet, building, grounds, and that includes custodians and the inmate crews. And then to the right, this changes community development a little bit. Removes code enforcement, but with Bobby becoming public works director, there would be a new community development director, and this person would still have site plan review, ordinance modifications, licensing, permitting, and building inspections. And then the last change is moving Pine Mountain to be with tourism under economic development.
So I would like to discuss the organizational chart. I have a proposal for how to make some changes to this organizational chart, and I don't know that this can be resolved tonight. And in fact, I'm sure it can't, but I want to start this conversation. I spoke a little bit about it with the city attorney earlier today. I am proposing that we change the organizational chart to reflect that the city attorney, the city manager, the court judge, and the chief of police become contract employees all along the same line in the organizational chart. There are a number of reasons why I think this would be helpful, but mostly it brings structure to these unique positions within the city. And I think that we should begin to have some conversation about how to move in that direction. He's telling me that you can't hear me, but I guess I hear myself well, so I didn't know. So that's what I'd like us to look at doing.
You said the only thing that would change would be moving from one category to the next.
Well, moving those positions
in the contract instead of just...
Yes, ma'am. That's correct. That's what I'm proposing that we look at doing.
Yeah, and I did talk to Councilman McDougal about that, and I think all those are fine. The one question that I need to look into a little bit more is the relationship of the chief of police in the organizational chart. Currently, the chief of police is an employee of the city. He's not a contract employee. He's a W-2 employee of the city. So I need to look at that and figure out how that fits into the city charter. The other positions, I think that'd be fine.
And we did talk about that a little bit today, and I appreciate that you're going to look into that and maybe get back to us with some more advice if that's what everybody would like to do. But I would point out that the city manager is also a W-2 employee, that he also is an employee of the city.
But he has a contract.
And he is also under contract.
And the city charter specifically provides that he is hired by the mayor and council. I'm not sure that that's what the charter says about the chief of police.
I understand.
Okay, in about 2005, the council did was chief of police. We actually decided on the chief of police.
Because in the charter, you do have the authority to approve department heads, of which the chief of police is a department head.
So within that structure, I don't recall it being that simple that we approve department heads. Are we also a party to terminating department heads?
Before I go too far out on the limb.
Okay. I respect that because we just went through a charter review and that language is much more gray than that. So that would be my proposal. I don't know if this council wants to, or how we should do that, in terms of, do we put this off?
Write it down.
Well, sure, but do we want to adopt this chart, or do we want to put this chart off until we've had a chance to look at whether or not we can make these changes subject to advice of the city attorney?
I don't see anything in the two conversations that overlap, so there's not a conflict. If we do one and then we come back in another meeting and do the other, the second one's not going to reverse anything in the first one.
No, it doesn't overlap. So,
Also, from a budget standpoint, we budgeted like this, so I'd like to get the expenses in the new departments and things if that's the way we're going to move forward.
so we could go ahead and approve this and then come back with that, and I'm fine with that.
Do I mind doing a motion?
I move we accept the chart as it is proposed, the stipulation of, I'm not reading it there, I'll write down, you read it from here. I make a motion that we approve the reorganization of 2019 fiscal year retroactive to October 1st, 2018.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Tab E, City Manager, Tom.
You have before you an addendum to an agreement that currently exists. We have had or have several modules of software that we use that are owned or controlled now by Civic Plus. They are originally a municipal website company who has been gobbling up software companies to expand their service offering and to build a bigger suite of product. Elisa has been doing some homework trying to find software that would help her document who is on which board, who appointed them, how long their term is, have something that reminds her ahead of time when they're coming off, handling applications and all the things associated with that. So this is her recommendation. It's an annual fee of $2,400, and we've had really good success with their software up to this point, so that's our recommendation.
Would you include this in the budget?
It's in the clerk budget.
Okay.
I just want to say, I can't even imagine going back to the old way we used to do it with all those huge books and having to, at the last minute we'd have changes in the agenda and 2 pages, and I'd get 2 pages to the same thing, couldn't remember which one came first, which one came second. Now, I'm looking at it on a computer screen here, and I can't imagine, Lisa, the number of hours that it saved you having to put those booklets together. So I think that was a wise move on our part.
Main thing with this,
The only time I missed the purple book is when I had internet problems. Otherwise, this is the way to go.
said they were ugly. The main thing I like about this boards and commission software is because it automates the application process, so someone who wants to apply to be on the board can do it online. And they send it, and it sends it directly to me, so I can get it to the board. So they don't have to call, come in, look for the form all over the website. So this is the main thing that I really like about this software, this program.
Clarifying that, because I thought they could go online and do it, and yet I know.
You can go online and print the form, but that's all. This program will allow them to do it. It will keep up with the expiring terms, and so if you're interested in applying for the DDA, you can go in and take a look at all the terms and just go ahead and send an application in instead of contacting Janet or anybody else. They just do it themselves, and I'll get it to the board. Okay.
What software do you use now?
I don't. It's well, we created it. If you go into government under boards and commissions, we have created a page for each board. So you click into the link and everything that's on that page is typed in there manually. So.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the agreement to the Civic Plus agreement. We have the boards and committees modular $2,400.
Second.
A motion and a second, did you get that? Okay. All in favor? It is unanimous. Item number 2. This one's a doozy. Yep. So we're bringing back for the third time a conversation about the pay study. We have in our possession now the final report, printed and electronic, that you've hopefully had a chance to look at. We, in this version of the implementation recommendation, have provided to you a more step-by-step detail of how we got here, who was on the implementation team, the steps that we went through initially to get Evergreen to the point where they could go to work, then the work that they did, the results of what their efforts produced, and then I guess just a summary of what the implementation team did after they finished. So one thing that may not be apparent to the council is that the implementation of the study is outside the scope of the engagement. So what we hired Evergreen to do was to do the study and produce the report. What the report did was tell us where people should go only to the point of the grade, not where they should be within the grade. And that's the sticking point that we're all dealing with here. And that's the difference between the first recommendation and the second recommendation and this one. So what Evergreen produced was a new pay structure and a recommendation on which grade each job position fell in. It's up to the implementation team and the council to decide how we get from there to some semblance of implementation, which is significantly financial in nature. That decision is a lot about how much money do we have. So the first time we brought this to you, we brought you a full implementation that cost over $600,000 a year just for the salary impact. And it required us to take hundreds of thousands of dollars of projects out of the general fund budget to make the budget balance. So that wasn't okay with us, and it wasn't okay with y'all. The second time, we brought you an implementation that had some limits in it. So that put some money, made some money available in the budget, but using a formulaic approach where you take the old grade penetration and try to do that in the new grade is very imperfect. And the reason that it doesn't work well and it doesn't feel good to anybody is it ignores all kinds of things. And I tried to detail those, and if you want to take a look at that on the second page, it doesn't look at tenure. It doesn't look at education, it doesn't look at job performance, certifications, evaluations, market demand, prior disciplinary action. It treats everybody from the perspective that where they are in their current grade is right.
and it says, okay, we're going to take them from 24% above minimum in the old grade and put them into 24% above minimum of the new grade. So if they're in the wrong place in the old one, you're just, duplicating the problem. If they're really low in the old one, they come in really low in the new one. If they're really high in the old one, they come in high in the new one, right? And so the feedback that I got was we need to do more than just a straight formula, a sort of a one-step formula. So what we're doing this time is we've still got a 50% penetration limit. We're still recommending a $3,000 per individual limit for full-time and $1,500 for part-time, just like the second proposal that we made. What we're changing this time is we're also recommending that the 6 people that didn't even make it to the minimum of their grade get additional money, so it ignores the $3,000 cap, so that they at least get to the minimum of their grade. It doesn't do anything different with the handful of people that are not going to get any additional money. They're going to come on to the new grade, and that's it. No additional money. The purpose of this implementation is not to give people raises, it's to get them on, to give us a new pay scale and get people on it in the right place. All right. We also are recommending that for a couple of positions, we artificially increase them in the grade. So we've got 2 positions, the captain positions in police, that, in my opinion, are extremely underpaid for the market. They're also underpaid relative to our police department. The gap between them and the chief is too big, and the gap between them and the sergeants below them is too small. And if you remember, we just brought to you a new lieutenant's position. Because there's no room between sergeant and captain, there's nowhere for that position to go without paying that position what the captains are making. So by approving what we're recommending here, we're closing the gap between them and the chief, we're expanding the gap between them and the sergeants, and we're providing a place for that lieutenant position to go. So how do we do that? Because if you're thinking about what all I just said, it's all expense and no savings compared to the second time. So what we did different was we went back and looked at the old scale. And one of the problems with the old scale is that the difference between each grade wasn't consistent, and the range from minimum to maximum in each grade wasn't consistent. So what that meant is if you were in one of the skinny grades, $100 above minimum gave you a greater penetration percentage than if you were in a fat grade. And it was totally arbitrary. So if the grade you're in was 33% from minimum to maximum, and another person's in a grade that's 50-something% from minimum to maximum, and they both make $1,000 more than the minimum in their respective grades, where they go into the new place are totally different, because one's divided by 33%, one's by 50, right? So what Sarah did was she went back and fixed the old grades. The effect of that is it lowered the penetration of the people in the skinny grades. That's where the savings came from. Is that fascinating? That only took us like how long? Weeks. 2 months? I don't know how long that took, but it took us a while to figure all that out, okay? So we're working with an imperfect pay scale, right? And the pay scale that we're going to is appropriate, but it's not magical. In the process of getting people on it, it's artificial, it's formulaic, it's just numbers, it's arithmetic, and the reason that we can't do something more sophisticated is we don't have an evaluation system in place that would let us do something that would look at performance, discipline, tenure, education. We don't have any way to quantify that or really even consider it. All right. Then the other concern that you should have is, how long have I been here? Right. I'm the last person that should be doing that anyway. Right. I've been here 15 months. I haven't even met everybody. Right. So I'm in no position to have recommended to you any kind of subjective approach to this. So there you go. You got number 3. So tell me what you want to do. I'll answer questions or go back and work on something else and give you number 4, but that's where we are today.
This time next year, I'm giving you the main evaluation system in place.
I would, from what I've heard, and we talked to Nancy about this a good bit, we're going to have to put something in place, train our managers, and do it at least 3 times to have something that she would recommend to us would be reliable. We're not good at it now, and just because we say that we're going to use it for merit is not going to make the next time better. So we got to train people, we got to do it, we got to get better at it, then we've got to do it again and get better. Maybe 3 times, then we start having something that's not subjective. Personality oriented, who likes who. It's totally unfair.
I like option 3, and because we're phasing it in, I want that evaluation system working before we get to where we're putting people at mid-level, because according to the study, the people we paid to do the study, they said for them to be mid-grade, they should be proficient, require minimal supervision and that sort of thing. And until we have an evaluation system, we have no reason to do that, because as you said, it's based on numbers. It means nothing. But this is the beginning. I like 3.
So last month when we discussed this, I made a point about that evaluation system. So are you telling me that we don't have any form of evaluation?
No, we evaluate.
And
everybody gets evaluated with 3s and out of a scale of 1 to 5. And
so what you're saying is that it needs a lot of work.
Yeah, in fact, I actually had somebody give me an evaluation to sign since I've been here that rated somebody a 2, and I made them change it. Because at that time, what we were doing was giving people increases based on that evaluation, and I knew something about the performance of the person, and that evaluation was on target, but in the context of our employee workforce, it was unfair because it was really the only one done right. I mean, for a person that had a single performance issue, everybody else is giving everybody 3s.
Well, part of the reason why we're doing this, why since I got elected that I pushed for this, and everybody did, I don't mean to say me, but why I was on board with pushing for this for this pay study was because part of this is about building a team here, people who are proud to work here and people who want to work here. And I'm in favor of going with option number 3. I had objections to 1. I wasn't thrilled with 2. I don't think 3 is perfect, but I'm okay with doing 3. But what I don't want to do is be in this same boat next year, or I'm going to be flexible to have a process in place to move us toward an evaluation system that rewards merit with pay increases. But to use your analogy, what you told me from the very beginning is you want to get the right people on the bus, and there may be some people who need to get off the bus. And I think the only way to do that is through these evaluations. I want to reward people who should be rewarded, and I want to step back from those who do not. I'm going to be in favor of implementing Plan Number 3, but I do want to see real progress on evaluations and merit-based increases in pay.
Well, I second that. We've got to develop a system of some sort before we come out of this next year. But I'm in favor of Plan Number 3, so I make a motion to approve the pay Plan Number 3 of the Salary Wage Plan, effective retroactive October 1st, 2018.
Second.
I want to make sure that I dispel a misconception, because I think I'm the cause of it. So, the goal of this is to place people on the pay scale. The goal is not to get people to 50%. When I started doing this cover sheet, and I got into the second page, and I started writing what the first plan did and what the second plan did and what the third plan did, I finally got to the point that I realized I didn't understand what we were doing. And I didn't understand it because what I just told you was the misconception, which you pretty much just communicated. I thought the goal was we were trying to get everybody to 50%, and the 50% limit and the $3,000 was all related some way. But it's not. The goal is just to get people from the old to the new, wherever that is, if it's at minimum, or if it's at 50, or if it's at 25, that's it. Then we're done with that process. The problem that we're going to have going forward is you've got people that are going to be in the right place in the first year, and other people that aren't going to be in the right place until the 5th year. If we keep the $3,000 cap, that's a problem that we're going to have to address as we go forward. But the goal isn't to get people to 50. It's just to get them on there, and then we'll have to talk about, are we going to do merit, are we going to whatever. But Nancy's recommendation is that in 3 to 5 years we redo this. And at the current rate, we're not even going to be finished in the 5th year, or the 4th year, or the 3rd year, right? So when we say this isn't a perfect process, I mean this is really not perfect. Okay?
So have you got any plans on how you're going to get to where you need to be?
No, that's a much better question than my answer. But what we're doing is we're recommending you something that we can afford.
Well, and I think what we're doing here by agreeing to the third proposal is also taking into account what we can afford. What you just outlined was exactly what the problem with number 1 was. Number 1 attempted to snatch everyone into the mid-range, and that just wasn't...
No, it snatched. See, that's what I thought.
That's what it looked like.
That's what I said. That's what I thought. It took me until when? Friday a week ago, right? To get it through my thick head that whatever I was thinking, I couldn't see what the spreadsheet was doing. And I made Sarah sit down for hours one day, and we went through formula by formula, and I followed every piece of it till I understood the arithmetic and realized that I didn't get it. You know, and then I was able to write this. So that's, I mean, this has not been an easy process.
So we just transferred from the old system to this new system, basically.
Yep. There's only a handful of people, and you got the numbers in here that are getting increases. So there's 37 people that will get less than $3,000, and so the cap didn't catch them. There's 62 that the $3,000 cap is going to catch, so that's what they're going to get. You've got 6 people that came up below minimum, so the cap got them, but I'm recommending that we take them up to
to minimum, so that's between $200 and $1,800 extra. So you have one person get $3,200 and one get $4,800 more. And then the two captains, those are significant. They're going to go past the $3,000 cap by more than $3,000, but that will give us a much more reasonable distribution among those guys at the top of the agency. And it keeps us all in the money, in that money range around $325,000 that we can afford. Next year, we'll have a whole nother conversation, and it'll be partly to be dependent on the money. How much money can we spend? And then, are there other considerations? Have we moved farther down the road on evaluations or whatever?
Okay, we've got a motion in a second. We've already started discussion. I was holding mine 15 minutes ago when I said go ahead, and I didn't get a chance. So since we have a motion in a second now to discuss this, this is not dissimilar with the situation we have with our water and sewer. When you don't get caught up, when you don't stay caught up, you end up at the last minute trying to do something. And we have for years, as an employee, paid our employees 2% raises each year to try to stay in a market that we could even hopefully hold on to people. And quite frankly, most of our employees work here, and I'm not sure why they do sometimes because his pay is so low. Case in point, we trained a person as a water certified employee in Buchanan, actually lured him away from here and paid him more money than we could pay. Buchanan, a smaller city. This was somebody that we had paid for training, and every day reading the paper, different police departments are struggling trying to find officers, and we are living in a competitive world, and we are in a market, in a swimming pool or a fish tank with a lot of other cities and counties in the state of Georgia, and we need to train employees here, and that's part of the evaluation process. Now, I don't want to wait until September next year and start talking about that. I agree with council that we need to start on our evaluation process immediately, but we need to retain people too, and part of retention is paying someone a fair salary for a fair job. So I think this is long overdue, and it's not. I wish that we could afford to do the whole thing at one time, because we certainly have the employees that deserve that, but I think that it's a step in the right direction.
And I don't think without a real evaluation system, we are actually going to strive forward and keep the employees that we need to keep, and we'll make the budget up being job. So we're going to have it.
Any other discussion?
Sorry.
Someone passed out.
Oh, you got 7-4.
I hear a motion. You did. I made it.
You already got a motion.
That's right, we got a motion second. Okay. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, employees.
Thank you, guys. All right. Ready for update?
Yes, sir.
All right, you get out the handout that should be laying on your desk. David's going to have to share. So I want to bring you up to date on where we are with water and sewer.
Can you put this up on? Do you have this?
Oh, that's right.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about 14 projects, 8 of them briefly. They're the ones that you're the most familiar with. So we have 4 short-term water projects, 4 short-term sewer projects that you've been involved in, and then some really tough long-term issues that we're going to be dealing with for potentially more than a decade. So the first item on here is the water plant upgrade. If you look on the 3rd page, there's some detail there.
It's cold.
You've approved the design of this project with Carter and Sloop. We're estimating that construction is going to cost us about $3.5 million, that we're going to borrow that money through a GFA loan and complete that project in 2020. It will give us redundancy and is also going to help us with our production capacity. So that one's in the works. Y'all have done what you need to do on that one. So that one's just working along, and 2 years from now, we should have a renovated water plant. So we can look forward to that one. The second one is the Edge Road water line extension. That's the Liberty Pool Road water volume problem. You've approved the design, you've approved the survey. We're hoping to have that project complete in 19. So a year from now, we should have that one done. 5,000 feet of 12-inch line. Number 3 is two small projects. One of them is the relocation of the water line at Punkintown in 61, which is going to allow us to have the mini roundabout constructed by GDOT. The other is to extend the water line from the library down to Old Town on Highway 61. You have approved the design. There's some easement work being done. That is also potentially a 19 completion, and because of the amount of money involved, we're going to try to pay for that out of pocket. The last water project is the North Avenue water line extension. This is a very significant and difficult project because of the area that it's in. We're going to install a pipe under 78 and the railroad between Don Rich and the Olive Tree, work our way beside the PD on Church Street behind us, down to North Avenue and up to 61. That will be gruesome. When we do that, we will also go back and replace all the service lines that exist between the main and the meter. Those are old galvanized lines right now that break all the time. So that's one of the main problem areas in the city. And the pipe size is going to help us with the volume problem, which is fire flow, right? So this is a biggie. This is one of the steps we need to take to actually fix the system. If you look at the next page, there's a map of 10 and 12-inch water lines. And the goal is for us to have a 10 and 12-inch grid through the city. But as you look at that, you can see that there are entire sections of town where that doesn't exist, especially in the area where Mr. Carter lives. So when you look at the area above East Liberty and West Liberty, going up to 20 to Edge Road and then out to Liberty Pool, you can see that there's not any substantial main out there. All right, so that's the 4 you know about, and y'all have done everything that you needed to do so far. So we eventually will have design complete, and we'll be bidding that out for construction, and you'll have an opportunity to approve some construction contracts. All right, then we have 4 sewer projects. The lift station review and maintenance, you've already engaged 2 companies to do. That was Brennan Jones, who's doing the engineering, and Goforth Williamson, who's pulling the pumps and looking at them mechanically. We finally got access to the 31st lift station, which is at Summergate. That will be done. Those pumps will be pulled on Friday of this week, so we're hoping to have Brennan's report by the end of October, and it is going to be a doozy. If you look at the next page, you have a map of the sewer lines and force mains in the city. The green lines are the gravity lines, and the red lines are the mains. So when you see a red line, that's a lift station. So you can sort of see that along 61, there's a number. There's some north of 61 up near where the mayor lives. And then there's another group that runs sort of east on 78 past downtown going out toward Douglasville. You've got another long one that runs down into Liberty Pool. So that'll give you a little better idea of what we're dealing with. We've got way too many lift stations. Number 6 is the I&I project. So again, you've approved the vendor for this. That project starts tomorrow, Pete, is that right? So Pete's getting started on that. We're expecting to spend a good bit of money on that, but we may be able to do a good piece of it in-house. We have a lot of rainwater getting in the system, and if history experience means anything, we're going to find that a disproportionate volume of it is being allowed by just a handful of entry points. So we've got to find those few manholes that are underwater, piping issues maybe that we don't know about, and we'll be able to knock out a lot of that. If you look at the next 2 pages, I've tried to show you what the change is between a dry day and a rainy day. So for the West plant, we do about 1 million gallons a day on average, and when it rains, the day after it rains, we do 2 million. So there's 1 million gallons of rainwater per day that get in the system. The North plant, proportionately, is even worse. It goes from 300,000 to 900,000. So we're treating rainwater. Oh yeah, lots of it.
And then dumping it.
Right. So in the grand scheme of things, this is not as big an issue as fire flow, right? Because that's a public safety issue. But this is just an operational efficiency thing. And it's not the most expensive thing that we're dealing with. It's just that if we fix it and it's fixed, and we quit spending money on it. What we're doing now is we're just spending money for no productive purpose, and we're going to do it forever until we find the problem. Number 7 is the North plant upgrade, which is sort of morphed into a second project. So one thing we want to do is upgrade the North plant to our permit limit. We're currently at about 500,000 gallons a day. We can go up to 800,000. We also have some upcoming EPD requirements that are going to be more stringent. So we're hoping to not only upgrade the capacity, but also the quality of the discharge to meet these new requirements. Even though they're not out yet, we know they're coming. But the other piece that we have talked about is we want to know if we can divert part of Mirror Lake flow to the east-west transfer station near Cleghorn and Anderson to get it to the west plant. And we think we know a way to do it, and we're going to use this project to determine if that's cost-effective to build another lift station, I think in your backyard actually, with a force main, and run that over to the east-west station.
And what's the benefit? Why is that necessary?
Because our big capacity is on the west side.
The new plant.
And that's where we need the flow to go. But right now, it's all of Mirror Lake goes to the North plant, which is constrained.
And that's where the growth is right now.
And it's where we're going to build, another 1,000 houses. So if we can get that northwest quadrant that runs north of Councilmember McPherson's house up to 61 and over towards Stockmore, if we could get everything above the lake in that quadrant to go the other way, then that's probably what, 7,500,000 gallons a day of the 3 that we would not have to process with the old plant. So we'll see.
Every lot built out of these houses are coming.
Yeah, the combination of those two things for sure, because if we knock 75 or 100,000 of demand off, and we increase the capacity of the plant by 300, and we're currently doing 300, then that means we can more than double and be, maybe barely okay. All right. Number 8 is a quick fix. It's the only really short project in here, and this is the bottleneck. So we've determined through Brennan that we have a single pipe on the 61 corridor that transfers all the sewer from 61 south of 20 under the highway. It's only an 8-inch pipe. It's not big enough, and it's only going to get worse. And so we can't immediately fix that, but what we can do is give it another place to go on the north side of 20. So right now it comes under 20 and goes back toward 61, sort of over toward Crystal and behind the hotels and the grocery stores. There's another place that we can route it where half of it will go, I guess, down Tanyard, I think, and then eventually it winds up in the same place. It's just going to go beside City Hall. That's where all the flow goes is along the creek to the west of us and the old Grady Brown property. That's where all the flow on that side gets to the west plant. But we'll do that. That will be a 19 project. All right, then we get to the bad ones. And the first one is really the most important of the 6. We know now that we have a bottleneck on under 20, so that's a choke point and a constraint for new development. But we're building houses in Augusta Woods, Twin Oaks, Summergate. Who am I missing? There's another one.
Charleston Place?
I don't know if Charleston's got any, but I think there's 4 neighborhoods down there that are all building out now. They're, developed lots from back in the recession, and they sat. So they're all building. We've got a 220-acre proposed development down there that's going through the DRI process with 3 Rivers. All that flow is going someplace, and where it's going is an 8-inch pipe that's already full. So we have got to re-engineer sewer on 61, and it's going to be time-consuming and expensive, and it won't be clear-cut what to do. And the only way that we can afford to do it is if it results in huge development, like another industrial park, the 220-acre development. So it's sort of a chicken and the egg. We need to build it in order to have the development, but we got to have the development in order to pay for it. Right? So this is the iffiest part of what I'm talking to you about tonight. Then we have an optional project, and that would be to run a pipe, a water line, from the Mirror Lake public water tank at Waffle House south through the bridge to connect to this new line that we're putting in on Edge Road. And that would give us part of that grid that I was talking about. We can't do that till after the bridge gets raised, which is a 19 or 20 project for GDOT, but as soon as that's done, we need to make the decision if we have the money. That might cost us $1 million, but it would help us connect so that the side of town that Mr. Carter lives on would have water access from 2 different tanks, the Walmart tank and the tank at Publix. All right, so that's the bad one, and that could be $1 million. It could be a GFER project, and we could do it pretty quickly, maybe in 21. Then we have 2 road projects. So we've talked about Mirror Lake Connector and the North Loop to death. It looks to me like the only way that those 2 projects get done and we're able to do the water and sewer is if we get redevelopment powers approved, because it looks to me like they both need to be TAP projects so that the water and sewer fund are not paying for those new lines. So what happens in November is going to determine to some extent whether or not we're able to do those 2 projects. So Mirror Lake, it looks to me like best case, we're probably not doing that project for 4 or 5 years anyway, as we, just get our stuff together and get through the 3 years of the fiscal health and all that stuff, and then we can entertain that. The North Bypass, is not funded until 2024, and it's a 3-year bill, so we're not going to have that road earlier than 9 years from now anyway. So that does
that does buy us some time, if you understand that's not great, but it is a side benefit of the delay. Then we're looking at two purely theoretical projects. One is whether or not we can take discharge from the west plant and reuse it. That's not currently permitted by EPD, but something that they're talking about. And then we're still pursuing the water independence project that Integrated is helping us with. We're looking at every water source that we can think of and determining whether that water is available and whether it's affordable to get it to the treatment plant. And at this point, we have not found a candidate. The mayor's come up with a new one. We've got another new one, so we're still chasing that, but that one's not obvious. The next slide is a summary of where the money's going to come from to do all of this. So we're looking at potentially 12.5 or 13.5 million in GFA money, with a little bit paid out of pocket, some that would, on the road projects, that would come out of the TAD, and then just a complete guess at the Highway 61 figure, which I put in here at 10 million, but that would be a bond issue, and that one, that's the iffiest part of that whole presentation there. The next page is a summary of the GFA programs that are available. What we're using in our budgeting is a 20-year, 2.75% loan assumption. And there are programs that offer lower rates, and we're going to investigate those to see if we qualify for any, but we may have some at one rate and some at another. The next slide talks about how long all this is going to take. So the first 8 projects in this list can all be done in 2 years. And if we do that, I'm telling you that we will have accomplished something that should have been done a decade ago or more, but is nonetheless really significant. And then when we get into that next group, if we start figuring out a way to do 61, then not only will we be in a position just to handle what we have, but we'll actually be able to grow. Down 61, potential industrial park, potential large-scale commercial residential development. We could expand west toward Van Wert or even farther west if we wanted to annex. I mean, it gives us a lot of opportunities. So that's what I know after 15 months. We've worked 2 weeks to try to put this together, so I would encourage you to keep this one, because we're going to refer back to this for a while, and we'll see if our predictions are valid. But it looks to me like those first 8 we can do in 8 years, and I think that will really be an accomplishment.
Okay, going back to more about this, what's the status on right-of-way acquisition and engineering?
The original let date was April of 19, and the engineering is still on that schedule. I have not heard that the right-of-way acquisition has changed, so it's on the original schedule. The only thing that I've been told that has been pulled is the environmental study. It only has a shelf life, I think, of 1 year, and so there's no sense in doing it now because they would have to do it all over again. So that's not being done. Had the money not been pulled, it would have already, almost been completed.
Tom, where are we at with regard to GFA application?
We put in a tentative application for 2 projects, the water treatment plant and the I&I project, back in 17. And once we get the engineering far enough along, we'll reapply for the water treatment plant money, because if we have the engineering done, we have a chance at principal forgiveness. Not all of it, but, a piece. And so we're going to try to, if the state wants to help us, we'd like to, take advantage of that.
It'd be hard for me to see how this council wouldn't want to move forward, especially if that loan was obtained. What time frame are we looking at for the engineering?
On which?
Well, really on the 4 short-term and sewer and water projects. Those are the two that seem, or the four projects that seem, they're $9 million in combined costs. They seem like the ones that we can tackle.
Yeah, the water treatment plant design's going on, the Edge Road line extension's going on, the 61 line extensions is ongoing. All three of those designs, I can't picture. So number 4 is North Avenue, that's going on. So all 4 of the water projects are being designed, and we've applied for permits to go underneath 78 and the railroad. And then on the 4 sewer, I'm going to have to cheat because I can't remember those. So the lift stations, that review's already underway and almost complete. The I&I hasn't started, but you've approved the vendor. Number 3 is the North Avenue plant. The group has picked the vendor, but it won't come to you till the 23rd. So you'll have an opportunity to approve a vendor. And then the quick fix underneath 20, we're just going to recommend that we use Brennan because he's the one that's most familiar with it.
So, sounds like all of these designs are underway or very soon will be underway. Is that a 6-month project?
Some of them, I mean, these are all projects that can be completed in 19 and 20, and none of them are waiting on y'all.
So that's the projects. I was just thinking about the engineering so that I would be sort of in the know about when we might reapply for the...
Yeah, we're going to be reapplying during 18 and 19. None of the engineering's going into 20 that I can think of. I think all the engineering will be complete during 20.
Okay.
Tom, thank you for your diligence putting this together. This is a great document. Hopefully we're going to put this on our website so that people can see it, and I'm going to try to get it on Facebook somehow. But, you've corrected me about the analogy about being a ship in the ocean and we don't have a map, we don't know how to get to the bank. I think we're headed in the right direction now, and I think this puts a lot of that in writing, and we know where it is. So I agree with what you said. I'm going to hold on to this and refer to it as we go down the road here in the next year or so. But we're headed in the right direction, and thank you to the citizens that had the faith in us to raise your rates, and these are the fruits of those labors are beginning to be shown now. So thank you.
I have 3 things real quick, because I know we've already gone too long. This list that shows me streets and where sewers are, that doesn't help me if I personally want to know who of my constituents don't have sewer yet. So if there's any way I can get my hands on something like that, what streets, like our side of Plunkentown does, we have it, but the other side doesn't. If I can get my hands on that. And number 2, kind of piggyback what Jeff said, the mayor, sorry. The public needs to see this plan. I know this isn't fun, but what you have in this PowerPoint, I think, lays out the gravity of what we have to do, and I think people have a better understanding of why the water and sewer rates, why you have to charge the rates to pay for it, because they need to see where it's going. It's not just going around in a circle somewhere. And if we can do this stuff in 2 years, let's have a party. I'll be elated because I can't hardly get a traffic light in 2 years. But so that's very positive, though. And on the bypass, it sounds like you've kind of relented defeat, and I don't think we should do that. I think we should continue bothering them on a very regular basis and bring it up every time we see some of our other elected officials that might have input with the right people. And if we don't, but we ought to try. We ought to try to get it moved up.
If we finish engineering right of acquisition, we're ready, so
Waiting on the money.
all we gotta do is find somebody with some power. Any other comments? Do you have any other things in your city manager's report you want to talk about, software expansion?
No.
Well, it's time to go, but we attended the grand opening of the new Southwire building, 412,000 square foot facility. Got to hear Mr. Stinson talk about the future of Southwire. As I told you a year ago, because I attended this same
kind of meeting. They're a behemoth that's going to become more behemoth. They're talking about $5 billion last year, $6 this year, $7.5 by 22, and maybe $10 billion a year by 2030. They're buying companies as fast as they find them that are related to their cable business. Their cable business is always going to be, 80 or 90% of their revenue. But they are huge. They are sharp.
60 new jobs.
60 new jobs in Billerica in this one facility. I think 450 total in the city. Very impressive presentation and group. I mean, when you listen to them, that's a sharp organization, and they're a real asset to the city.
Goodness.
We don't have executive session, is that correct? I will entertain a motion and we adjourn.
Make a motion?
You know what? I think we have a motion and a second, so all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all.